this, and you're recording you, and we've got good audio all around, so let's go. Ready? All right, so I thought that this would be an interesting opportunity to look at somebody who is actually on the ground in South Korea. They are living a potential future for somebody that handles the virus in a certain way. And so I've already discussed the way in which it could have been handled via the South Korea model. So tell me first a little bit, introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you're doing in Korea right now.
Yeah, guys, I'm Ethan. I operate a YouTube channel, Live Travel Asia, and I've wanted to show people what it's like living and traveling all over Asia. For like the last 5 years, I've been living in Bangkok, and I decided to come to Korea to see if there's any opportunities here and like further expand my ability to travel, etc. I came middle of December, which was before all of this crazy thing started to happen.
Yeah.
I even considered taking a flight attendant job in the States. So I, flew over there in January, but for the most part, I've been here in Korea. And after that flight to, the States in January, it's when it went bonkers over here and everything sort of went into lockdown. And, my life and my plans just got thrown into disarray. I was like, all right, I was already in a position where, things aren't predictable because I was putting myself out there, trying to make something work. And now we got the coronavirus to deal with. And especially, like you and I, when we're all about traveling and we can't, it's no good. So I've been just sort of updating people as far as what's happening here, because eventually it became quite clear that a lot of the things that are happening in Korea, it's very relatable to what's happening in the States. And, I don't want to say that everything is perfect here, but, the results sort of speak for themselves. Like, I'm not going to downplay it.
Let's talk about that. What is life like for you in South Korea?
To be honest, right now, as of late, there isn't much that's different. I really can't see how life is more different now, other than there is a heightened, like an ultra heightened etiquette of, wearing masks, or if you're sneezing or whatever, you shouldn't go out at all, even if you are wearing masks. People are tense, but we're at a phase right now where over the last 2 weeks, we've only had like a handful of cases. So people are relatively thinking it's coming to a point where it's over. I think people are concerned more about the restrictions other countries are putting. So we can't go out there. And also economic wise, like Korea operates on, their economy is highly based on big corporations like Hyundai, Samsung. You guys know about that, but in Korea it's even bigger because, Samsung and Hyundai also have a big construction company that's just as big. It's like, it's all big corporations. And these big corporations are suffering because we're an export country. And if the orders are dropping, then it's like the economy is hurting. So I think that other than the economy and people not having a great future job outlook, it's pretty much normal. We just go out, we eat now. Even before this, if you see my videos, there's more heightened like tension as far as, trying to social distance ourselves, and a larger amount of the public not wanting to go out and eat and such. But there hasn't actually ever been a time when Korea said, hey, we're going to shut down all restaurants. Like, if you wanted to go to a restaurant, ever since like day one, we were always free to go to it. It's just that even without those restrictions, we're looking out for our lives. We're concerned, so we didn't go. So I think our family was a little less risk adverse than most. So if you see like in our earlier videos, there's like nobody there. So that just only made us think, okay, it is pretty safe because there's nobody in this restaurant. I'm not gonna catch it, you know. So we ended up going, and then as it went, like it's sort of the line of the risk going down, and then risk going up because there's more people in the restaurant. It's sort of equaling out. So we've always just sort of, other than having a job and such, which I'm really having a tough time finding a job or anything. But as far as life itself, I don't think there's much difference. Yeah.
What about testing? Have you been tested?
I myself, I haven't been tested. It's optional. If I wanted to, I could get tested for free. But there's nothing that made me think I might have gotten the virus. I've never had any kind of like symptoms like high fever or sneezing or anything. But main thing is we don't want to spread it. So even though there was a point, there was a lot of argument about masks, but even though I didn't really believe this is 100% protecting me, it's something that I did just so that, other people aren't catching it from me. And I think that's sort of the mentality with a lot of people, whether or not they believe that the masks are effective or not, we're just wearing masks. So that's pretty much the only precaution I made.
If you wanted to get a test, could you?
Yeah, why not? I mean, there's drive-throughs, and now, for people who don't drive, you can go into these sterilized booths that they sterilize after each test, and they'll test you. I mean, Korea is like this better safe than sorry. If you think there is even a chance, then you go get tested. And it's like doing a service to the country. If they even suspect that you had contact with somebody who had the virus, because Korea does trace quarantining. So they have a government entity that is dedicated to, if somebody had the virus, there's like government officials that track everywhere they went for like the last 14 days and quarantine everybody that they had contact with. They'll shut down businesses, and to incentivize that, I think it's on social media a lot lately. They're showing these quarantine packets. They give out these free packets of goodies for you to quarantine in, like all the food, etc., and money, and then they give you a thank you letter. Oh, thank you for helping out society. So Korea encourages this better safe than sorry approach, I think, because they want to really get it under control.
Tell me, like, because I want to examine this a little bit more. So if you wanted to get a test, how long you left the house, how long would it take you to get there, and how easy do you think it would be?
I haven't done it myself, but based on reports and everything I expect, it's very easy. We just get in a car, you drive up to a testing facility, and you get tested. It's not like there's a huge line of people it's just, you go to the nearest testing facility, they test you.
Oh, I'm just like, is it 10 minutes to drive away, or like a CVS, America? Is it like going to a Walgreens?
No, it's not like they're testing. No, they're only administered in the centralized locations. They originally had the drive-through ones, but now hospitals have them as well. And they set up like telephone booth like things outside. You just walk in there and they'll test you,
Was there any backlash from society on the fact that the government was now kind of trying to fight this virus, and it might be inconvenient for people? And did you see like in America, you have people kind of like stay in protests, by going out and protesting? And is this something that you're seeing? Is it maybe because maybe South Korea might trust their government maybe a little bit more and have a little bit more faith in how things are going? And I'm just curious about what's going on in South Korea with regards to that during the meat of the scariness part.
Well, this is what's different than America. If you see the sensationalized news, there's enough evidence to, like, Korea is a democracy, we have the same issues. It's almost like a two-party system, although it isn't. And we just went through an election. So this issue was actually politicized, just like in America. So the current administration is probably the more liberal, they're almost like the Democrats, like the same kind of talking points. And they went the more safe than sorry approach, right? And the conservative, they're also like the same talking points. And generally the conservatives here seem to be like the conservative Christian group, just like America, almost the same talking points. But the initial surge of cases, it was just so bad, maybe. I don't know if I can credit the Korean people, or it was just so bad. And it was just because of the testing, it was very clear just how one lady went and infected like 1,000 people at just one
In Daegu,
church.
right? Daegu.
Yeah, in Daegu. And then that was a cult. So like there was like 1,000 people infected just from that one church. And they spread out into their different cell groups, and then eventually ends up being like 5,000-6,000. And before that, starting February when the WHO declared it, international concern. They didn't declare it a pandemic quite yet. They just said health. Yeah. And then, but Koreans, it was the same as if they said it was a pandemic, because we saw the data coming out of China. And even though it was election time, this was what was very clear to me. I know that Korea was more serious about it because the first thing that they start the news off with, and the first talking points in a majority of the news segment, was dedicated to following what's happening in China with this Wuhan virus. Because they know this could get very serious, because last time this SARS epidemic happened, it was serious, and they want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So even though the elections are very important, and I can even argue that Koreans are even more into politics and hashing it out and arguing about the left and right side than just like Americans. They were so focused on that. But the second most important thing was the elections. And you have the Conservative Party that's trying to, win the seats, and they're trying to discount the current president. And then you mix in religion. And there was like this very outspoken pastor that was going out and arguing, this coronavirus is not a big deal, why are they, telling the churches to shut down and not operate, because these churches, you can argue Korea has even bigger mega churches than America. Like the biggest Christian church in the world is in Korea, guys. So like the amount of money and the operation going through there is like equivalent to like a large corporation. So if you say people can't come to the church, this is going to impact society. So in the beginning, although they were saying people were sort of staying away from restaurants, early February, it was this bad. Like one person, because we have big, large corporations, right? So they got corporate buildings. So there's two corporate buildings next to each other. There was one person that was infected in a separate corporate building. This corporate building, like a big Korean cosmetic conglomerate, just furloughed all their workers as well. That's how serious they're taking it. But until this Shincheonji thing happened, no one even dared touch saying you shouldn't go to church. That's how religious they are, right? Because this will like incite the conservative religious people, and it would probably switch the alienate, and it would just like probably hurt the chances of the election, right? They'll say the liberal party is. So it's very similar issues as America, I think. So there were protests, but at the end of the day, what is very different is, from on the ground, from what it seemed, Koreans didn't protest. When I compare it to America, it's just they didn't protest much. There's just very like small, groups that are very extremists going out there protesting to make it like a political issue. But like I would say 9 out of 10 Koreans like wouldn't even empathize with that. It's just like, you're stupid, just stay in, And even the churches, the Korean churches, the mega churches here operate, most of them are Presbyterian, and it's like a very hierarchical system where they have, it's not a pope, but they have an organization that sort of agrees to do all of this. They all decided to, okay, we're not going to hold church services. We're going to just do it live streaming. Korea switched into live streaming, and I think it's possible because Korea is very well connected, broadband, etc. So they just decided to do that. And aside from the religious sort of extremists, most people fell in line, even the Christians, and they're like, yeah, because at the end of the day, you don't want to die. And it was so clear, if you go to church, it just takes one person to infect everybody. So
I mean, singing itself is like you're projecting your voice, you're projecting particles out of your mouth, you know? It's, why don't you shake your neighbor's hand? Look at that guy across the way. Shake his hand and shake that woman's hand. It's like, oy,
there's a good chance that you might not catch it, but are you willing to put your life on the line for it? You know, like it's not worth the risk. And even like 99% of the churches would agree, because what happened is, you have to understand, this Shincheonji cult is under like huge, like they are, you know how the world hates China? Korea now hates Shincheonji. They're already this cult, but after this incident, they're like, oh my gosh, they're a threat to society.
Yeah, you guys are dangerous.
Right, yeah. And then like there's actually a lot of these Shincheonji people committing suicide because you know what I'm saying? Like they're getting so much hate, and the society was saying they already were getting a lot of hate, but now it's like, oh, you're killing our country, etc. So they can't survive, and they just would commit suicide. There's a lot of these cases right after that. So the risk reward is also not worth it, even if you're operating a church. It's like, yeah, you do want to have church service, but what if there is a situation where there is one infected, you know? Then your church is going to be titled as the one that sort of created this issue. And society is...
In your location, when was the last person that was infected? Last case?
Actually, I've been sort of going back and forth, but since January, after I came back from the States, and then they declared it an emergency, I've been mostly staying sort of in the outskirts of Seoul, like 30 minutes out. And here, you know what? I can't think of an incident where they even had one. I think there was like one near here, like a few, but as far as, yeah, that's like, it was pretty much as good as control since the beginning. What a lot of people don't understand is, in Korea, if you take away, you know, that Shincheonji cult, you already have like 2/3 of the cases eliminated. And then you take away that southeastern city and, you know, the surrounding areas. That's probably like most of the cases. There weren't actually a lot in Seoul.
Busan was getting hit?
Well, in the very beginning, there were some cases in Busan, but Daegu, you know, that's where most of it was happening. Busan is like sort of an outskirt city. Like Daegu is an outskirt metropolitan area, so there's a couple cases in the beginning, but eventually Busan is just as controlled as, you know, it only took a few weeks, honestly, to control it altogether, even in Daegu. So yeah,
well, you busted your ass. You busted your ass. I mean, South
I
Korea
didn't,
busted
but
your
yeah,
ass.
thank the officials here, like tracking down everybody, quarantining. So
Let me ask you, economically wise, did South Korea have to provide a stimulus package in order to get people through this? And what was that?
This was actually a big political issue. So the Liberal Party, the current one right now, with the current president, he proposed it. And, you know, it's just sort of like America. If one party does it, just by default, the other party has to oppose it, kind of thing, regardless of whether or not it's sensible or whatever. So there was a lot of arguing from the other party, like our economy can't take it, etc. And there's a lot of people that suspect not only did the current party win in a landslide because they handled the situation relatively well, but they believe a lot of the like stay-at-home like moms and such who were sort of promised this wanted to see that happen. So they're passing stimuluses, but it sort of got stuck in Congress, you know. But now the new people they have like a almost like a supermajority equivalent in America. So it looks like the stimuluses will get passed. Individual cities were passing stimuluses of their own because cities actually sort of operate like states in Korea. Because Korea is really small, so the government system is like a city, like city of Seoul or even the outskirts city of Gyeonggi. They have their own funds, etc. They were handing out stimuluses of their own. I think it was like $200 or so. I didn't qualify for it, so I didn't pay too much attention. But yeah.
So you didn't get any stimulus, but did you? Okay. So it wasn't like mandatory every single. Are you a citizen? You're an American citizen,
yeah,
right?
So I'm not gonna get it.
You wouldn't qualify anyway.
Yeah. But I was surprised because, I mean, I don't know about China, but in like Thailand, I wouldn't even think once about even like complaining or arguing maybe I'm entitled to this kind of stimulus. But I was so surprised because in the news, they were sort of empathizing with some of these foreigners who were also, who were getting laid off and not getting jobs, and saying maybe they should get stimulus as well. But, in the end, like even half of one party is arguing that even Koreans shouldn't get it. That sort of died off, like paying out foreigners. And I don't expect it either, but it was interesting.
Put it this way. So by being aggressive on the onset of this thing, before it even hit, really, you had your first case, right? You were acting on South Korea. I'm just saying South Korea, by actively and really strictly testing, contact tracing, aggressive measures in the beginning period. You forego the huge stimulus, the huge knock to your economy, the massive decline in unemployment. Now, I'm sure that South Korea still has a lot of unemployment, but this whole experiment, this whole episode was about how would America have fared if they followed the South Korean model,
Along those lines, there are certain key differences between Korea and America that I don't think they can completely follow. So I think America could have definitely fared better, because even if they took the measures they are taking now 1 month earlier, which was possible, they would have fared better. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to be honest with you, as far as the lockdown, America is far more strict about the lockdown. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, from what my friends are telling me, there are certain people that are getting arrested on the streets for going out there. You see like videos of cops like pulling people out of buses.
But there's a million cases in America, and even appropriately, South Korea never got that. They never got to that.
Korea never had to do any of those lockdowns. We never even shut down restaurants. And I was like surprised when my friends are saying, oh, Americans can't even go to restaurants. We close out all the restaurants. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I can't empathize. They're taking a step further with the lockdown measures. You know what I'm saying? So maybe if they just took even half those measures, but just earlier on, they wouldn't even be in the situation to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or if they just admitted earlier on, and the CDC didn't like say, oh, don't wear a mask, but people were just trying to at least wear face coverings, it could have, I mean, I remember clearly in the beginning, the whole argument is whether or not you would catch it. But from the very get-go, Korea was all about wear masks because you don't spread it. That's already been an ingrained culture. Like if little kids have a cold, when they go to school, their moms will put on a mask on them so then they don't spread it to other kids. This is just common etiquette. But I guess Korea already had this in place. So it was always an argument of whether or not can you control it for society? Am I doing something that's good for society? Not whether or not like that, that Western girl we're talking about on your stream. I'm an American. I'm entitled to, there's none of that kind of attitude. Korea's never had that. So, that's one aspect of it. But also I have to say, as far as unemployment and such, the reason why you don't see it is Americans are sort of screwed in this, and I don't think they even realize it. But most other countries in the world, you can't just fire somebody. You know what I'm saying? And say, go collect unemployment. There's like strict contracts, especially, and Korea is, I said, like majority of the economy is operating on these big corporations. So big corporations, just like Japanese systems, etc., you have a contract. So if they lay them off, these companies will have to pay these people like huge severances. There are certain laws around that. So there is no incentive for them to lay these workers off right away. Because in the beginning, we didn't know how long this would take. Now, maybe in hindsight, some of those companies would have taken the hit and laid them off. You know, who knows? But, you know, like in February, they're thinking, you know, it might not be as bad. We'll get it under control. Maybe in 3-4 months, it will come back to normal. So it wouldn't be worth to pay like a year severance to these people. You know what I'm saying?
What is the equivalent U.S. dollar minimum wage there? I'm curious. Do you know?
To be honest with you, I can't say on top of my head. But I know like the average, you know, the average worker probably makes about like $2,000, something like that a month. A little less. I would say
healthcare. What's the healthcare there? Socialized? Is it government healthcare?
it's private, but they have a universal policy. And because this, actually I have a post up on my Facebook. Because this is considered a national pandemic, the government actually covers for all the costs related to like any kind of sicknesses related to the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah. But the universal policy is already really good. And it's not like America where you have out of control costs, you know? Even if you were to pay cash, it's less than the deductible that you'd probably be paying in America if you just came out here to get treated. You know what I'm saying? So,
Now, when the virus was what percentage? Because I understand every country kind of has this feeling. What is the anger directed towards China in South Korea? I'm curious.
I don't think it's as bad.
Have people asked for them to pay, or people suing them? Is there a movement of people saying those Chinese bastards, they need to, you know?
I honestly think the initial anger, there was the initial anger that I really remember seeing, and the argument was it's politics again. I guess it's very similar to America. So one side of the party that's very conservative that wants to get at this liberal president, and I can empathize with this a little bit, is when they declared, like on January 30, it was pretty certain, like now, yeah, this thing is sort of out of hand. You know what I'm saying? And Korea actually didn't put a complete travel restriction on China. And this was the decision of the president. And, you know, they also say this liberal president here is a communist, etc. So he's like colluding with them, and he's just like, so when the initial Shincheonji cases spiked up, the anger was more pointed at the president for not putting a complete travel restriction on China, right?
Yeah.
And then when it blew up, they felt, what happened was there's like a lot of, on the news and such, you saw Koreans were going into China, and then the Chinese were being xenophobic and spraying like following along them, and then just like spraying, you know, the cleaner like literally on their clothes. You know, like there's videos of this. I don't know if it was widespread.
Like you're a car wash.
Yeah, like you're a car wash, right? And then and ironically, China put travel restrictions on Korea right away, right? So then they're like saying the hatred was more towards the president. It's like, why didn't you put travel restrictions on them? Why are we being treated like second-rate citizens over there? But for this whole time, we were trying to make Chinese feel welcome, you know, that we're their friends, and we're giving them like donations of masks and such. And then look how our citizens are getting treated over there. But I think it's like, you can't really blame them for acting in their self-interest, but we're like blaming the president for not acting in self-interest. It's like you're being naive kind of thing. And I think that's sort of the attitude in general in Asia that's very different than America. I mean, God bless America. I love America for being idealistic and thinking, everyone should not operate on their self-interest, but we have this overall like good karma kumbaya thing. Yeah, but here in Asia, the status quo is you are allowed to act in your self-interest, and you cannot blame that person for acting in their self-interest. It's your fault if you were naive and you didn't act in your self-interest. So I don't think there's much hatred like per se going to China. It's more like, why didn't we act in self-interest? We're idiots for not doing so, kind of thing.
Are there conspiracy theories about the Wuhan lab, about the soldiers in America, or is there some sort of South Korean theory? Or, I mean, it seems like before.
I'm sure there is, because I sometimes see, I guess, to me, maybe I might be isolated from it as well, but it's not so much like, on social media you have these extremist YouTubers that will go and have all these theories, etc. But I think Koreans are less fixated on that because it's like, this is what we come to expect from China already. It's like, what's the difference?
Right. China didn't tell us everything. China never tells us everything.
China doesn't tell their own citizens everything. Like, are you an idiot?
I thought you were going to be honest with me. Come on.
Yeah, like Americans have this idealized view, like everybody should act like, open, like, it's like, this is what we come to expect from China. We don't even like blame them for it. You're just naive if you just take their word at face value. So that's why, I mean, Korea was so fixated on what was happening in China, and I clearly remember early January, February, everyone in America, like 80% of my feeds from America was like Democratic primaries, right? They didn't care about this virus at all. And like Koreans, we have the same kind of misinformation, maybe. I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I'm not going to say it is, but let's say it is misinformation. We have the same information coming here, but we were so fixated on it and analyzing it, trying to read between the lines to see what was really happening, and trying to look out for our self-interest and protect ourselves, So when shit hit the fan, it's like, oh yeah, but what do you expect from China? They're a communist government. You can't blame a lion for being a lion. It's like that's how they operate.
Well, I mean, did South Korea have people, because they obviously started before their first case, or right around. I mean, they were preparing when the news was breaking in Wuhan. Did they have people that were reporting back to them, or did they just say? I mean, obviously you don't know. You're not the government of South Korea, but did you know that there was a pandemic response team, or there was somebody that was in South Korea that was like, or in China that was a representative of South Korea that was like, we know China is going to be China, but we need to understand for our own self-interest how bad it's going to be?
Well, what you have to know is that the SARS and MERS, it was relatively similar. It's like the same playbook. Like, like many people would argue, China wasn't being forthright during SARS either. And it really hurt the economy here, etc. So after that happened, Korea created a response. And actually the response wasn't enough, and that's why they had to recalibrate after the Shincheonji issue. So, you have to realize now it seems like, oh, this can spread and everything. It's common knowledge, but like January, even like they say, even SARS was also relatively airborne, contagious, but it wasn't this contagious. You know what I'm saying? So they were expecting, oh, it's probably going to be like SARS, and they put in the trace measures, which would have been enough to sort of tackle like SARS type of spreading, but it was like an eye-opener when the Shincheonji thing happened. They're like, this is really infectious. So then they recalibrated and went into like an overall more general kind of suggestion for lockdown for society. And it's relatively easy to control Korea too, in a sense, where the president can call like the heads of the top 5 big conglomerates here and say, this is what you should probably do. You know what I'm saying? And that would take care of most of the economy, etc. So they did that. So there was definitely a response in place. Even before the Shincheonji thing happened, what happened, like I clearly remember seeing, there was like a Chinese, the first case was a Chinese person that came from Wuhan. She was like a 35-year-old woman. It was like late January. When that happened, it was just like an automatic response because Korea already has this system in place. You trace everybody she had contact with, put them in quarantine, lock down all the areas. They even like her neighborhood is next to a school, so they shut down that school. And then if she went further on, I don't know if she did, but like there was like, other 1 or 2 cases. If they went into a mall, they would say shut down the whole mall, And I was thinking, this is pretty extreme. That was before I thought we all realized how like contagious this was. But Korea just automatically had those kinds of systems and policies in place. So that's when, it was already very clear when I went to America. I came back and I'm like, they're doing absolutely nothing, and I'm like, and even when the initial like cases happened in Shincheonji, right? And all of a sudden overnight we're like the most infected after China. There was like this paranoia and like there are Americans here, right? They were, even Korean Americans, they're like, I'm leaving Dodge City, I'm taking off to Korea. And then there was like professional basketball players that play in the Korean league and such, right? They have a contract, but they're like, screw this, I'm gonna cancel my contract. I wanna survive. And they went back to America and such, Yeah. But it was very clear to me. I'm like, even if I didn't go to the States, just knowing there is absolutely no response, nothing being shut down in America, and the initial cases being around the same time, it's just probably that they aren't testing, Like, how could it not spread any much more there? The virus is the same virus, whether it's located in Korea or America. It's gonna spread the same way, but the actions that Korea are taking, I felt more confident. So I that's when I went on live stream and I said, I'm getting a lot of people who are telling me, are you okay? You're in Korea. I wish you and your family the best. And
it's coming for you too.
Yeah, I don't want to discount them. And I'm like, thank you so much. But then I went on live stream and I was like, you know what though? I am more concerned about you guys in America. What's happening in Korea isn't like isolated. It didn't happen because we're bad at it. It's just a testament to how like contagious this virus actually is, So I think at that time was Dr. Drew was going around and saying like, oh, you're gonna die from the flu more, blah blah blah, and I'm like,
No worse.
yeah, like get a flu shot, and I'm like, yeah, America's screwed. I mean, at least we have a reality check of how bad it is early on, so they took the precautions. But I'm just like, when I read between the lines, and that's when like I have a chat group with other Asian guys who are paranoid about this and tracking and doing all the research for me. They're like, look at the number of tests in Korea, like hundreds of thousands, and the total number of tests in America. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way that they can even know that the virus is spreading in America. And like, it was only a matter of a week or two when it started blowing up elsewhere. And I'm like, yep, I didn't even have to wait that long for my suspicions to be validated.
My question for South Korea is, why did they keep all of their preparation and everything secret from the rest of the world? You're keeping that from North America, and we just didn't know or could not have known anything. Like, did you take your secret SARS preparation book and look at it and say, ooh, we're not going to tell anybody else about this?
If you see what's happening, the current president, right, is like so like into wanting validation from the international community. He is going out there and saying, hey, we will come out and help. It'll just make him look better, amongst the citizens here. So from the very get-go, he was going out there and offering help, and it was just like people discounted it, but eventually the numbers showed, and then now I think Korea is sort of being a model. But I also want to bring attention that I'm seeing that Taiwan seems to be doing a great job too. And then if you sort of read between the lines, they were going out there and even more on about like, listen to us, like trying to get validation that, that their methods are good, etc. But even now, I would say, and for good reasons, I'm not going to completely discount it. The South Korean model, I can't say with 100% myself, this is the best way to approach it. There's like different models out there. This is just one model, and
The numbers show South Korea did pretty damn well.
well, it's better than what's happening. But there's like theories about what's happening in Sweden. If what they are saying is true, and they're gonna get herd immunity I think I heard it a week ago, so in another week or two from now, then yeah, maybe just take the hard pill now. But then you never know until it happens. I'm not gonna say, oh, just because Sweden is claiming that they're gonna reach herd immunity in a week or two, I'm gonna say, oh, let's all just become guinea pigs and lab rats, and then like just
It has to play out.
yeah, like I'll see it when I believe it. But if it does happen, oh well, maybe South Korea should have gone for herd immunity too. We never know. So I'm not gonna commit to anything. But, to me, it's just like America has the benefit of just sort of letting other people be the lab rats and just observe. Like, I don't think we should go out, like, don't be a Dr. Drew. Like, he's a smart guy, but don't go out on your limb and then say, this is the right, and then it's going to look really bad.
We were in China. I was in China with my family. We saw Wuhan, and when we saw this was not normal. And we knew that it was coming to America, just a matter of time. And we were just like, what the hell is going on here? So anyways, hey, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Real quick, I'm going to plug myself. I cycled across from Seoul to Busan, and then I did all of Jeju Island on the trike. I actually have an episode I'm going to share in this video where I went through Daegu, and I had the most fun. I was cycling they are a cycling community there, man. They got all sorts of little cycling doodads and big wheels and little wheels and skateboards and things put together. A barrel with a kid in it. The guy was riding the bike and towing this barrel with wheels on it. It was amazing. So I want to share that so you guys can kind of get a little insight into where the heart of the coronavirus in South Korea started and how amazing the place is. Tell me one of the videos that you'd like me to plug in this episode.
Well, I just finished editing, so the latest one is I actually, due to a recommendation from one of my viewers, he said, shoot a little bit of your life for a month. Yeah. The first month I wanted to focus just spending time with my family, so I wasn't focusing on vlogging. But I didn't realize that was going to turn into like life right before the coronavirus, right? So December 13th to like mid-January. So you can sort of see how Korea was. And if it interests you, you can see how it's changed because, both of us were giving sort of live updates, and I'm doing daily vlogs as I travel around and show you Korea, even during the coronavirus situation. So it's less of, am I making a statement whether or not it's good or not. I try to avoid that, but just try to show you how it's like here. And you come to the conclusion whether or not, America should be acting a certain way or not. I just want to sort of show you how life is like. That's it. So check it out and see how life was like before Korea and after on my channel.
Okay, so if you wanna check out his channel, it's called Live Travel Asia. I'll include it in the description below. It's important that we put things into perspective, and that's what this whole episode was about. A different perspective for a different place that was doing this whole coronavirus thing a little bit differently, and potentially how maybe better it could have been for the United States had they followed that model. So thank you so much, and watch. I'll encourage everybody to subscribe to your channel, and yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's good that we finally did. Like,
Yeah,
we didn't meet up in Bangkok.
We've been talking about this. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Oh, you know what? Off